Welcome to another episode of The Social Lens. I'm your host, Beatrice Goodwin, and today we're diving deep into one of the most pervasive yet invisible forces shaping our lives: self-criticism. Right now, as you're listening to this, there's probably a voice in your head. Maybe it's commenting on my voice, questioning whether this podcast is worth your time, or perhaps it's already moved on to criticizing something about yourself. Your productivity today, your appearance, or that thing you said 3 hours ago that you can't stop replaying. That voice? That's your inner critic, and it's been with you longer than you probably realize. It's the enforcer of your mind, demanding adherence to a specific set of acquired standards and moral tenets. Think of it as that internal supervisor who never takes a day off, constantly implying my way or the highway, wielding fear, shame, and guilt with brutal efficiency to manipulate your behavior. But here's what's fascinating and terrifying about this inner critic. It shows up most forcefully at our most vulnerable moments, times when compassion and understanding toward ourselves would be most beneficial. Instead of offering comfort, we berate ourselves with self-criticism. It's like having a bully living rent-free in your head, and somehow we've convinced ourselves this is normal, even helpful. Today we're going to explore the hidden world of self-criticism, where it comes from, how it manifests in ways you never expected, and most importantly, how understanding it can set you free. We'll journey through history, relationships, neuroscience, and even the surprising connection between chocolate and criticism. By the end of this episode, you'll never look at that inner voice the same way again. We'll dive into groundbreaking research that uncovers why self-criticism can be both a hidden motivator and a mental trap, explore how our inner voice shapes our identity, and reveal surprising strategies to turn harsh judgment into self-compassion. Plus, we'll ask, can we ever truly silence that critical voice, or should we learn to listen differently? If content like this sparks your curiosity and lights up your mind, you need to check out The Social Lens by Skoob, an AI-powered podcast app that delivers short, binge-worthy episodes tailored to your personal growth journey. From psychology and mindfulness to self-awareness and resilience, The Social Lens makes learning quick, compelling, and deeply relevant. Download Skoob on the App Store or Play Store and transform how you see yourself and the world around you. Let's start at the beginning. Your inner critic wasn't born with you. It was carefully constructed, piece by piece, through your experiences, particularly in childhood. Think of it as a psychological bodyguard that your mind created to protect you from external criticism and rejection. The inner critic is notoriously resistant to change, shifts in personal identity, expressions of creativity, and any type of introspective work. Even more fascinating, it fears the emergence of anything from the unconscious mind. This voice of judgment cherishes the status quo, thrives in familiarity and predictability, and insists on maintaining homeostasis. It's constantly whispering, "Don't rock the boat. It's not safe." This is why efforts towards self-improvement often feel like swimming upstream. When you try to rectify what the critic deems problematic, you're fighting against a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. The critic drives you toward an external search for validation and love, manifesting in attempts to meet conventional standards and please others, what we might call seeking love in all the wrong places. But here's the crucial insight. Praise and blame stem from what experts describe as an infectious disease of the mind. Think about it. Both praise and criticism keep you focused outside yourself, looking for external validation rather than developing internal wisdom and self-trust. This pursuit of perfection, often instilled from a young age, evolves into a lifelong compulsion. It's an ego-driven pursuit that can easily overshadow the soul's journey toward wholeness. From an ego perspective, the quest for perfection obscures the path to true self-fulfillment, stalling our potential for holistic growth. The inner critic stands as the chief barrier to self-acceptance, trust in oneself, and the ability to expand our creative potential. It stymies growth, halts internal evolution, saps personal empowerment, and perpetuates a cycle of negative self-dialogue that becomes so familiar we mistake it for our own voice. Moreover, and this might surprise you, the inner judge impedes your capacity for connection and empathy with others. If you're exceedingly critical of yourself, you'll likely be a stringent critic of others, even if these judgments remain unspoken. The criticism you level at yourself becomes the lens through which you view the world. To truly understand why self-criticism has such a grip on us, we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The fear of criticism isn't just personal. It's deeply embedded in human history and culture. Consider this fascinating observation. There's an intrinsic aversion people have toward criticism that stems from an inherited aspect of human nature. Throughout history, individuals have not only sought to appropriate what others have, but they've also rationalized such actions by criticizing the character of those they've wronged. This behavior is commonly observed in thieves and politicians. They criticize their victims or opponents rather than showcasing their own virtues. The fear of criticism manifests in ways that might surprise you. Take, for example, the phenomenon of baldness in men. Some researchers suggest this could be attributed to fear of criticism, causing men to wear tightly fitted hats to conform to societal norms. This practice restricts blood circulation to hair roots, potentially leading to baldness. Men wear hats not out of necessity, but because it's customary, fearing the criticism that might come from standing out. Women, who generally wear hats more loosely for adornment, seldom face the same hair loss issues. But if you think women are immune to this fear, consider this. Try walking down the street wearing a hat from the 1890s and experience the scrutiny that would follow. The fashion industry has cleverly exploited this deep-seated fear for generations. Clothing styles change every season, and it's not buyers who determine these styles, it's manufacturers, because new styles drive sales. Similarly, automobile manufacturers roll out new models annually, persuading consumers not to drive outdated cars, even if previous models function better. These might seem like trivial examples, but they reveal something profound about human nature. The fear of criticism influences not just minor aspects of life, but more significant matters within human relationships. Consider people around ages 35 to 40, generally considered to be of mental maturity. If their true beliefs were accessible, you'd often find disbelief in many old dogmas taught decades ago. Despite private skepticism, people are reluctant to publicly express disbelief due to fear of criticism. They might even lie rather than admit their true thoughts. This fear is deeply rooted in history. People have been punished severely, even burned at the stake, simply for expressing disbelief in widely accepted but unproven ideas. Such persecution has ingrained a fear of criticism in human consciousness that persists to this day. In some parts of the world, criticism still results in harsh penalties. Now let's dive into how self-criticism plays out in our most intimate relationships. This is where the story gets particularly fascinating and troubling. Imagine Julie and Rich having lunch together. Rich is a complex character, capable of delivering a compliment and then seamlessly transitioning into critique. This blend intrigues Julie, but she's astute enough to recognize the dual nature of his behavior. She understands that both flattery and criticism hold significant weight in relationships. Criticism is an inescapable part of life. It's a mirror that reflects our imperfections and inevitable mistakes. Embracing criticism is often seen as a hallmark of maturity, and accepting feedback, when constructive and well-intentioned, can foster personal growth. But when criticism becomes interminable, like reading an endless stream of harsh reviews, it signals a major red flag. Understanding why someone criticizes reveals crucial insights into their psychological makeup. Sometimes criticism stems from a benign desire to help someone improve. When delivered sparingly, criticism isn't inherently negative. If the person giving criticism has minor self-esteem issues, Most criticisms, though possibly irritating, can be reasonable. But here's where it gets dark. When criticism serves as a facade for deeper self-esteem issues, the challenge becomes substantial. A person might wield criticism as a mechanism to elevate themselves, positioning their insights and confidence above their partners. Criticizing shifts focus to the criticizer, a tactic that's particularly advantageous when they're under stress or scrutiny. By placing others on the defensive, the criticizer effectively gains the upper hand. This dynamic gradually erodes the partner's confidence, control, and self-esteem, transforming them into an unwilling, emotionally depleted servant, while the criticizer exudes an aura of emotional vampirism. Yes, you heard that right, emotional vampirism. They feed off the energy it takes to defend yourself, to constantly question your worth, to second-guess your decisions. Individuals who criticize frequently often have a childhood history lacking warmth and acknowledgement. They may have grown up with excessively critical parents who failed to nurture confidence in them, driving them to overcompensate for the persistent criticism and lack of validation they faced. To shield themselves from the pain of criticism, they become critics themselves. For them, the best defense is a robust offense. Unfortunately, this defensive stance obstructs genuine intimacy, which often suits them perfectly. They relish the emotional distance, enjoying pleasure without assuming responsibility. Their goal is to have others shoulder life's burdens, leaving them free to criticize from the sidelines. Unlike those who labor to create, the criticizer prefers to spend their energy tearing things down with words. This pattern perpetuates across generations, creating cycles of criticism that pass from parent to child, creating new inner critics in fresh minds. Here's where our exploration takes a scientific turn, because self-criticism isn't just a mental phenomenon. It literally changes your body and brain in measurable ways. First, let's address a major misconception. Many people, particularly women, are taught from an early age that self-criticism is somehow beneficial. Many are encouraged to harshly judge themselves for perceived shortcomings. When things don't go as planned, the immediate response becomes self-reproach. I'm so stupid. I'm fat. I'm a loser. Your brain registers these self-critical thoughts in areas associated with behavioral inhibition, which acts like brakes on your system. Unsurprisingly, this self-criticism correlates directly with depression. And depression, as you might guess, doesn't enhance sexual well-being or life satisfaction. But here's what's truly fascinating from a neuroscience perspective. Self-criticism is merely another form of stress. Stress originally evolved as a crucial survival mechanism, activating when feeling threatened. Self-criticism triggers the exact same physiological response as an external threat, increasing stress hormone levels. Your body responds as though it's under attack, which is counterproductive to overall health. Let me paint you a picture of what happens in your body when that inner critic starts its assault. The way you feel about yourself greatly influences your performance in athletics, arts, business, every area of life. When your inner voice becomes critical or harsh, it feels as if you're being attacked. Your brain doesn't differentiate between imagined scenarios and reality, treating these internal criticisms as if they were real, physical attacks. This triggers your body's automatic threat response, the fight-or-flight response. When activated, your body behaves like a zebra being chased by a predator. Stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol surge through your bloodstream, prioritizing essential functions for immediate survival: increased heart rate, rapid breathing, heightened muscle readiness, and sharpened vision. Your body's focus shifts from long-term well-being to short-term survival, shutting down non-essential functions like muscle repair, digestion, and parts of your immune system. This includes deactivating non-critical cognitive functions such as analytical thinking, creative insight, and problem-solving. So negativity doesn't just impair performance, it literally makes you less intelligent in the moment. It also shapes how others perceive you. If you think, That was a silly thing to say during a conversation. Your facial expression might inadvertently reflect your internal criticism. Since body language reveals what's happening in your mind, any negative thought eventually surfaces on your face. Even a fleeting negative expression can be noticed by others, affecting your interpersonal dynamics and charisma. Self-criticism acts as a major barrier to exceptional performance across various sectors. It's often deemed the silent killer of business because it affects countless executives who seldom speak about it. Both junior associates and high-ranking executives privately confess that a significant part of their workday is consumed by negative self-talk, with their inner critics continuously highlighting shortcomings or forecasting unfavorable results. Many express amazement at their capacity to accomplish anything despite spending substantial time battling internal negativity. As one executive starkly stated, 80% of my day is spent fighting my inner critic. Imagine what they could accomplish if that energy were redirected toward creative problem solving instead. The key is understanding that you don't have to let your inner critic run the show. Those relentless negative thoughts might feel automatic, but you can learn to recognize and challenge them. Reclaiming that mental space means turning energy spent on self-doubt into fuel for creativity and growth. If this episode hit home and you're thinking, why wasn't I taught this sooner? Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to The Social Lens on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your future self will thank you for tuning in today. Now we're going to explore one of the most unexpected connections in the world of self-criticism: the link between criticism and chocolate. Yes, you heard that correctly, and the science behind this is absolutely fascinating. Let me introduce you to a personality type called intuitive sensitives. These individuals navigate a world where the fear of criticism looms large, influencing their behavior and emotional responses. They tend to go to great lengths to avoid criticism because it causes them considerable anxiety and distress. However, if a situation involves someone close to their heart, they're willing to stand their ground, defending themselves vigorously while striving to ensure their reactions remain fair and just. The way they handle criticism becomes a matter of constant contemplation, keeping them awake at night as they weigh responses and ponder potential consequences. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a fascinating connection between their relationship with criticism and their eating habits, particularly concerning chocolate. The link stems from the chemical serotonin, which plays a crucial role in mood regulation by mitigating stress responses. Chocolate, known for its ability to boost serotonin levels, becomes a comfort food for these individuals, counteracting the anxiety triggered by criticism. Through careful observation, researchers have noted that individuals who endured significant early life experiences related to criticism, such as having an overly critical parent, often exhibit a strong attraction to chocolate. During workshops focused on intuitive individuals, when participants were grouped based on their preferred sugary treats, a clear pattern emerged. Those inclined toward chocolate revealed a consistent emotional response connected to criticism. These individuals tend to consume chocolate secretly, ensuring that neither others nor themselves become consciously aware of the quantity consumed. When presented with abundant chocolate and permission to eat freely, they often demur. Some cautiously portion out small amounts, savoring them slowly, while others abstain entirely in public settings, claiming no desire for chocolate. But here's the revealing part. When chocolate was abruptly removed and discarded during these workshops, participants' true emotions surfaced. A sense of urgency and anger arose from the waste, revealing a deep-seated conflict, a secretive indulgence driven by fear of criticism, coupled with rebellious anger that compels them to indulge in private. Post-experiment discussions confirmed that many had indeed experienced critically parental figures during their upbringing. It's important to note that not all chocolate lovers have endured critical parenting, but there's a striking correlation among intuitive sensitive individuals who prefer chocolate as their primary sugar source. This suggests that their heightened intuitive instincts may have evolved as a defense mechanism, helping them preemptively safeguard themselves from criticism by anticipating or foreseeing potential situations. The chocolate becomes both a rebellion against the critical voice and a biochemical attempt to regulate the emotional chaos that criticism creates. This intertwining of attachment issues and inherited fears of criticism can manifest in various behaviors related to food and emotions, illustrating the complex dynamics experienced by sensitive individuals as they navigate life's challenges. It shows us that self-criticism doesn't just live in our minds. It literally changes what we crave, how we eat, and how we seek comfort. Let's now examine one of the most devastating impacts of self-criticism: how it systematically holds women back in their careers and personal ambitions. The stories I'm about to share represent thousands of women whose potential remains unrealized because of their relationship with criticism and praise. A prominent concern for women aspiring to assert themselves is the fear of external judgment. Worries about being disliked, colleagues doubting their competence, or family disapproval loom large. To genuinely advance and embrace their potential, women must break free from both the dependency on praise and the dread of criticism. Let me tell you about Deb, who worked in domestic violence prevention. She excelled in her profession, consistently receiving commendations from superiors and peers. However, her ambition to establish her own pioneering program, inspired by 2 decades in the field, remained unfulfilled. She feared that her innovative ideas might attract criticism from other leaders, causing her to hold back. Deb's predicament exemplifies a common issue among high-achieving women. An inability to gracefully handle potential negative feedback leads to reduced career aspirations, all in an attempt to dodge criticism. Then there's Mimi, who faced a different challenge. Coming from a background where even positive recognition was deemed inappropriate, she realized she was stunting her own progress in a large corporation. She feared that too much praise might provoke resentment from peers, isolating her. This subtle form of being ensnared by praise often results in self-sabotage, downplaying achievements or conforming to collective accomplishment levels to avoid standing out. Rachel's story is particularly heartbreaking. In a prestigious fine arts graduate program, her photography was regularly critiqued for not aligning with contemporary trends, labeled as too sentimental, idealistic, or insufficiently political. This criticism completely stifled her postgraduate creativity. Many women like Rachel remain hindered by critical feedback from years or even decades ago, their creative spirits crushed by voices that no longer even exist in their lives. And then there's Mandy, a tech entrepreneur who found herself inundated with feedback from advisors, fellow entrepreneurs, and potential investors she respected. She felt compelled to integrate every form of critique into her business idea. This obligation to gain unanimous approval slowed her progress and watered down her initial vision until it was barely recognizable. These narratives highlight different forms of being hooked by praise and criticism. Deb is immobilized by potential criticism. Mimi avoids actions that might elicit praise. Rachel is shackled by past negative feedback. And Mandy is overwhelmed by the need to incorporate diverse opinions. Each of these women illustrates a distinct way in which dependence on others' feedback can hinder personal and professional growth. What's particularly tragic is that these are all capable, intelligent, creative women whose contributions to the world are being limited not by their abilities, but by their relationship with criticism. The grip of praise and criticism creates a prison with invisible bars. Women find themselves making smaller and smaller choices, taking fewer risks, speaking up less often, and dimming their light to avoid the possibility of negative judgment. They become experts at reading rooms, anticipating criticism, and preemptively adjusting their behavior to avoid conflict. This doesn't just impact individual women, it represents a massive loss of innovation, leadership, and progress for society as a whole. When we systematically discourage half the population from fully expressing their capabilities due to fear of criticism, we all lose. Now that we've explored the devastating impacts of self-criticism, let's turn to hope. Can the inner critic be tamed? Can we break free from these patterns that have been generations in the making? The answer is yes, but it requires a fundamental shift in how we relate to that critical voice. Let me share a powerful story of transformation. Picture a training session where an instructor looms over a student vociferously declaring that their actions would have resulted in tragedy had the situation been real. His words pierce through the air, questioning diligence and study habits in front of everyone. As he lists mistakes, the student feels mental defenses crumble, tears welling up as they question their presence in such an unforgiving environment. But here's where the story takes a turn. Despite intense pressure, the student takes a moment to breathe deeply, focusing on the grass beneath them. They remind themselves that their value doesn't hinge on a single success or failure. Having survived life's most arduous challenges, they understand that success involves more than mere technical knowledge. The persistent inner critic, always eager to undermine self-worth, is met with a resolute inner voice, reminding them to persevere and acknowledge their intrinsic capabilities. In a moment of vulnerability yet necessity, the student approaches their instructor, shares their struggles with learning, seeks understanding, and requests patience and kindness. In return, they commit wholeheartedly to mastering the material and excelling under guidance, which they ultimately do. This story illustrates a key principle. Confronting your inner critic doesn't mean fighting it with anger or trying to banish it through force. Instead, it means developing a new relationship with that voice, one based on understanding, compassion, and boundary setting. The inner critic often acts as a conduit for harsh voices from those who have caused emotional scars, parents, partners, or friends. These echoes from the past continue to influence present-moment experiences. But here's the revolutionary part. As healing develops, compassion and even laughter can replace anger. When the inner critic appears, instead of fighting it, pause to understand its intrusion. Is it fatigue? A need for nature? Are you overextending yourself for others without reciprocation? By acknowledging these questions and sitting with your inner critic, you can convey understanding while asking it to part ways with grace. Here's a practical technique for when you're faced with an inner critic questioning your worthiness, scrutinizing your decisions, or impeding your ambitions. First, pause. Be conscious of your instinct to fight, flee, or freeze in moments of emotional triggering, especially if past trauma is involved. Place your hands over your heart chakra and breathe deeply. Calm your mind and listen to your heart's gentle rhythm. This grounds you, whether you're sitting or feeling solid ground beneath your feet. Tune into where your body is channeling energy and where your emotions originate. As breathing becomes stable and heartbeat steady, ponder these questions. Is the inner critic providing truthful and accurate insights? Are these insights essential for your awareness? Is your well-being being compromised by the inner critic's provocations? Is your inner critic genuinely serving your best interests? If the story spun by your inner critic is counterproductive, misguided, or unwelcome, engage in a candid internal dialogue, politely instructing it to depart. By refusing to harbor detrimental behavior from your inner critic, you're setting a precedent for how you expect both yourself and others to treat you. The remedy lies in substituting self-criticism with self-compassion. Women often experience a dual reaction upon hearing this suggestion. Initially, the idea appeals because they naturally desire to be more accepting of themselves without incessant blame when imperfections arise. Research confirms this gut feeling. Self-criticism leads to adverse health effects, both mentally and physically, and is linked to increased loneliness. But then comes the resistance, the fear that abandoning self-criticism means accepting imperfections and giving up hope for improvement. This is a fundamental misunderstanding. Self-compassion doesn't mean lowering standards or giving up. It means creating the psychological safety necessary for growth and change. As we reach the end of our journey through the hidden world of self-criticism, let's take a moment to acknowledge what we've discovered together. We've seen how the inner critic develops as a misguided protector, how it's reinforced by historical and cultural fears, how it manifests in our relationships and bodies, and how it systematically holds us back from our potential. But most importantly, we've seen that change is possible. The inner critic that has been with you for so long doesn't have to be your life sentence. It's a voice you learned, which means it's a voice you can unlearn, retrain, and ultimately transform. Remember Deb, who was afraid to launch her innovative program? Mimi, who dimmed her light to avoid standing out? Rachel, whose creativity was stifled by old criticism? Mandy, who lost her vision trying to please everyone? Each of their stories could have different endings. Each of our stories can have different endings. The journey from self-criticism to self-compassion isn't always smooth or linear. There will be moments when that familiar critical voice seems louder than ever. But now you have tools. You understand where it comes from, how it operates, and most importantly, how to respond to it with wisdom rather than reactivity. Your inner critic developed to protect you, but it's operating from outdated information, childhood fears, and cultural programming that no longer serves you. You can acknowledge its concerns while choosing a different response. You can thank it for trying to keep you safe while firmly establishing new boundaries. The world needs what you have to offer. It needs your creativity, your leadership, your authentic voice, your innovative ideas. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you're not just healing yourself. You're contributing to the healing of a culture that has normalized emotional self-harm for far too long. So tomorrow, when that inner critic shows up, and it will, remember this conversation. Remember that you have a choice. Remember that your worth isn't determined by perfection, and your value isn't contingent on avoiding all criticism. You are enough, exactly as you are. And you're also capable of growth and change, from a place of love rather than fear. The voice in your head doesn't have to be your enemy. With patience, understanding, and compassion, it can become an ally in your journey toward wholeness. The question isn't whether you'll ever be free from self-doubt. The question is whether you'll let that doubt define you or refine you. Break free. Your authentic self is waiting. This concludes today's episode of The Social Lens. I'm your host, Sonia Lambert, and thank you for joining me as we explore the inner voices that shape how we see ourselves. If this episode sparked a new insight, a question, or a moment of reflection, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. And if you're hungry for more smart, bite-sized insights on self-awareness, mindset, and personal growth, check out Skoob, your AI-powered podcast studio app that delivers tailored episodes just for you. Download it now from the App Store or Play Store and start learning faster, deeper, and smarter. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself.